Good morning, everyone. Dr. Stillman here, and today we are gathered to talk about blood pressure, the dangers of it, and what you can do about it. Thank you for joining us this morning. Drop a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. If you can't, drop a 2. Jim is there to respond to some of your comments and questions. I will be taking questions at the end. For those of you watching the replay, there was a little bit of confusion with the timing of the webinar. It's 10 o'clock. If you're watching this late and you signed up for the 11 o'clock, I'm sorry, we make mistakes, but fortunately you get the option of watching the webinar on replay. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so the title of this webinar is Blood Pressure Secrets. I'm going to be explaining what I see going on with blood pressure in our modern world, problems we see people struggling with, and what I do about them as a physician, and then how I help people figure out what to do about their blood pressure so that it can be optimal. Okay. So why are these secrets? Because blood pressure is really big business. High blood pressure is a disease of diet and lifestyle, and that is how I help people to restore a healthy, normal blood pressure for life. Who am I? I'm a general practitioner and medical doctor. I specialize in functional and integrative medicine. I've been featured by Ben Greenfield, Mind Body Green, Dr. Joe Mercola, Wellness Mama, and more, and I now run a 99% virtual practice in Florida. Okay. My mottos as a physician, personally and professionally, are: the greatest medicine of all is teaching people how not to need it. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, said that. And then I came that they might have life and have it more abundantly. I view this as my job as a human being. This was Christ speaking in John 10:10. Okay, you can find me, and I encourage you to follow me on Substack, stillmanmd.substack.com, Instagram @stillmanmd, and then my Facebook page, Leland Stillman MD, and Twitter @StillmanMD. Okay, it's important to follow me on a variety of platforms because of what I think and how I speak and what I say, and because I make big holes in the boats of people with big vested interests. I tend to get deplatformed, silenced, censored, etc. Make sure that you're following me in these places, as well as my newsletter at stillmanwellness.com. Okay. So high blood pressure, why is it such a big deal? Well, it leads to heart disease, stroke, dementia, kidney failure, and it's associated with diabetes, weight gain, and metabolic syndrome. So sometimes your blood pressure creeping up is the canary in the coal mine that your health is going south and that you need to do something about it in order to get healthy and to prevent all of these problems, right? Very often we'll see that the blood pressure goes up before someone's A1C goes out of range and they develop diabetes, or we see that their weight gain is starts after their high blood pressure diagnosis, and so on and so forth. Okay, here are some statistics that I hope will sober you up if you're on the fence about taking serious action to optimize your blood pressure. 50% of heart disease, stroke, and heart failure is associated with high blood pressure, and arguably due entirely to it. 18% of deaths overall and more than 40% of deaths in people with diabetes are associated with hypertension. It is a leading risk for fetal and maternal death in pregnancy, dementia, and renal failure. 4 in 10 adults over 25 have high blood pressure, and another 1 in 5 have prehypertension. Okay? This is not the world according to Dr. Stillman. This is not the world according to integrative, functional, holistic wellness doctors. This is like the mainstream facts, okay? So high blood pressure, you all know this, or especially you know this if you've got high blood pressure. There's a pill for that, right? Everyone who gets high blood pressure walks out of the doctor's office with a pill. I think this is a problem because high blood pressure is fundamentally a disease of diet and lifestyle. So the better question of what pill should I take for my high blood pressure is, what is causing my high blood pressure, right? And we're going to talk about the top 5 causes that I see going on in the world that people are not appreciating or underappreciating, and that are very addressable. Okay, what I've found practicing, conventional medicine was that high blood pressure, the way we deal with it, leaves people feeling bad. It leaves them feeling confused, ashamed, broken, disempowered, hopeless, despondent, diseased, and fearful. Why? Because generally speaking, the narrative is, okay, you came into the doctor's office, you have a high blood pressure, there's something wrong with you. They say sort of diet and exercise. They may give you some education. Often they don't. People go out, they try whatever they think is going to work. It often doesn't work. And then they think, what's wrong with me? Why am I not well? Why do I need to or what is it going to take for me to resolve this issue? And even if you don't resolve it, how is this going to affect me down the line? Okay. I'm really fond of this quote. I quote it all the time. It's another quote from Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine. Illnesses do not come upon us out of the blue. They are developed from small daily sins against nature. When enough sins have accumulated, illnesses will suddenly appear. We can find these small daily sins, mistakes, errors, bad choices, whatever you want to call them. And then we can help you understand how to fix them so that you can be as healthy and well as possible. So here are the top 5 causes of high blood pressure. And this is not an exhaustive list. There's a lot of subcategories in here. And I'm going to try and give you kind of the tip of the iceberg, 50,000-foot view, the big strategy to understand how these 5 big factors can play into high blood pressure. And again, I want to say that this is not just like theoretical. It's not just the world according to Dr. Stillman. These are really well established in the literature and they're all modifiable. We're getting a couple comments we're getting a couple comments in the comments section that people can't see the slides or hear the presentation. Jim's in the comments. Jim, if you can see this, if you can, because I can see you, Jim. If you can see this and hear me, please give me a big thumbs up. If you can hear it okay and see the slides, please drop a 1 in the comments. I don't want to be presenting to no one. But I know that a lot of people are putting comments and saying that it looks fine and they can hear it. So if the problem persists and we're not getting that from everyone, then the problem unfortunately is on your end. Okay, top 5 causes of high blood pressure: mineral imbalances, lack of detoxification, stress, lack of light, and methylation problems. So cause number 1, mineral imbalances. You'll notice that this is a very big topic, right? Mineral imbalances. Like, what does that mean? Okay. Here's what it means. So you've got many different minerals coming into your body, and you've got 4 big minerals. We call these the macro minerals. And this goes back to something called Resnick's ionic hypothesis. You don't have to remember that. There won't be a test later. But I think this is a really cool hypothesis where they basically stated you need the right balance of minerals to have a healthy blood pressure. And if you look at the minerals in your body, they're present in highly varying quantities. So potassium, you might get 2 to 7 grams of potassium in a day. That's a huge range. It's also a large amount. 7 or 8 grams of potassium is like very hard. It's a very big quantity, right? Contrast that with something like copper. You might get 1 to 4 milligrams of copper, right? That's 1,000th as much copper as, say, potassium. The balance here matters a lot. Okay, so what overall tends to cause high blood pressure? People who tend to get high blood pressure have a high sodium and calcium intake and a low magnesium and potassium intake. Now, if it was that simple and I could cure everyone with this solution, right, we probably wouldn't have an epidemic of high blood pressure. But the devil's in the details, and most people are not aware of this. And implementing it isn't as simple as just taking magnesium and potassium supplements, as we're going to talk about. And again, this is a very well-established, well-researched hypothesis. There's other contributing factors, but it's fundamentally where I start everyone when I'm talking to them about diet, hydration, and how to fix this problem. Okay. One key concept that I want you all to be aware of is that this happens over time. Consistency is key. I've had cases where patients took magnesium or potassium supplements at my recommendation, and days or weeks passed, and they said, Dr. Stillman, my blood pressure hasn't gotten any better. What's going wrong? Why isn't it working? I thought you could fix my blood pressure. And I say, look, you've been creating this problem day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade. It's very poor. It's bad thinking to say, okay, I started my supplements a week ago. Where's the blood pressure improvement, right? Anyone with a prescription pad can drop your blood pressure very quickly overnight. We have very powerful medicines to do this. That can't be your focus. Your focus has got to be on your wellness. And a piece of this has to do with the fact that it's not just as simple as dumping mag and potassium into the system. You've also got to ask the question, do you have enough water to flush excess sodium, calcium, and other toxins out of the body? If you look at what happens with dehydration, you end up getting what we call hypernatremia or high sodium levels. And while the body may actually get hypotensive or have a low blood pressure with dehydration, if you have chronic dehydration at a low level, people will tend to accumulate sodium and calcium and not have enough potassium and magnesium, and they'll often end up with a high blood pressure. This is subtle. It's not like it's the same for all of you, but it's definitely a strong trend in my practice that people who don't get enough water have got a higher blood pressure. Now, part of this is because of water's effect on detoxification, which is the second big cause. So toxins drive high blood pressure. Anywhere you look in the literature, exposure to a variety of toxins will drive your blood pressure higher. So it stands to reason that lack of elimination of toxins will drive high blood pressure. So what is detoxification? Your body is going to be exposed to toxins in life. And it's worth mentioning that, for a lot of these things, the dose makes the poison, right? So you can get a toxic syndrome from excess sodium. It's called hypernatremia. You can get a toxic syndrome from excess water. It actually is called hyponatremia or water intoxication. So anything, generally speaking, can be a poison. But there's some things the body just needs to rapidly get rid of. There's no therapeutic value in something like mercury or cadmium or lead or arsenic or, any number of different industrial chemicals like bisphenol A or polychlorinated biphenyls or dioxins or whatever. Okay. So your body's got mechanisms to get rid of these toxins because the more it accumulates, the sicker the body gets, the more diseases you have, the less well you feel, the more weight you gain, the higher your blood pressure goes. So sweat, stool, urine, lymphatic fluid. This is how the body detoxifies. Sweat, pretty self-explanatory. Stool, something you're familiar with. Urine, also something you're familiar with. Lymphatic fluids are really underappreciated one. Your body has a system parallel to your veins where it's constantly moving toxins through this lymphatic system that then come out in sweat, stool, or urine. So what kinds of toxins are we talking about, and how should we think about them in order to protect ourselves and therefore optimize our health and well-being? So there's two big categories that I'm going to just talk about today. Toxins can be, divvied up into lots of different categories. For example, you could look at mold toxins. People who've been in mold damaged buildings can have very high levels of these toxins. But that's kind of a niche thing. It's pretty controversial. I could talk about that some other time. But the two toxin groups that are most global and significant, in my opinion, in their effect are heavy metal toxins, excess minerals, and then petroleum-based toxins. These are very well known to be associated with high blood pressure. Now, how are we getting rid of these toxins, and how do we know that improving our detoxification pathway is going to improve our blood pressure? But more importantly than just improving your blood pressure is reducing the problems that you get from high blood pressure. Because let's be real, you don't actually really care if your blood pressure is high. That might sound surprising to you, but you care that you don't get a heart attack, a stroke, dementia, renal failure, etc., from high blood pressure. If you run a high blood pressure of 145 over 85 and you live to 103, guess what? You got away with having high blood pressure for decades longer than many people. And that's what I think is important, is living the life you want to live, living it to the fullest, feeling your best, looking your best, and doing the good things in life. Okay. So the more constipated you are, the more likely you are to have cardiovascular problems. The more dehydrated you are, and the lower your water intake, the more likely you are to have high blood pressure and therefore the problems associated with it. The more you sweat, as in the more you go in the sauna or the more you exercise and break a sweat while you exercise, the lower your blood pressure is going to be and the longer you're going to live. Very well known in the literature, not controversial at all, not some kind of out there, wellness doctor theory, simple facts. Okay. Cause number 3, stress. Stress is something you've all heard of. It's something you all struggle with, but I think it's also something that a lot of you don't really understand, and that's okay. We're going to demystify it at least a little bit today. So I'm just sharing with you 3 different stressors here that I commonly help people with: psychological and mental stress, vibroacoustic stress, which is a fancy way of saying noise stress, and then artificial light at night, which most people don't think of as a stress, but is definitely a stress. So what's psychological or mental stress? So, psychological or mental stress is any stress that's, something outside of you coming in and creating a psychological or psychosocial, sometimes I say, stress on your body. And these psychological stresses are real and they do have an impact on high blood pressure. I often will talk to people about how toxic and stressful their work environment is. I'll talk to them about overworking, working too many hours. I'll talk to them about their relationship stress. People with just bad habits, toxic personalities will create a lot of this stress that then can drive high blood pressure. We'll have people talking to us about how their sleep, their energy levels, many of their vital physiologic processes are very, very tied into stress of family members, relationships, friendships, work, etc. Okay. You have to have a grasp and a handle on what your mental and psychological stress levels are if you're going to understand how they are affecting your blood pressure. Vibroacoustic stress is it's like a $10 word for like a $2 concept, which is basically noise pollution. So technically noise makes not only a noise that you hear, but also a vibration that you can feel. And people don't realize this, but just a little bit of noise can go a long way towards disrupting your physiology. The more noise you're hearing from a road, the more noise you're hearing from aircraft, transportation, trains, the more noise and vibration that you're feeling through your environment, even while you sleep, while you work, whatever, the higher your blood pressure may be. It's very well established, and this means that little tips, tricks, changes in your life that you can implement to get rid of that noise pollution or mitigate it can actually have a big impact on your wellness. And then last, artificial light at night. So many people don't realize this, but working late at night and having exposure to light at night is associated very strongly with not only high blood pressure, but all the bad things that come with high blood pressure, strokes, heart attacks, etc. Right? So minimizing and mitigating artificial light at night, in my opinion, is a key strategy and a key tactic in order to optimize one's blood pressure, physiology, and chance of having a long, healthy, and happy life. Okay. And when people say stress, a lot of them are very vague. And they also have these ridiculous things like it sort of makes me cringe the way that workplaces will do this. They're like, we're going to have a wellness day. And even though you're all working 70 or 80 hours a week and you have toxic bosses and crazy expectations and, really bad workplace culture, we're going to give you like an afternoon off or a day at the beach. And we're going to expect that to like magically make you all happy with your work environment. This is very silly. Really, stress is a complex topic. You need someone to help you understand what it is, how it works, and how it's affecting you, because no two of you are the same, and you all need different approaches to stress management. And you really do need to implement this if you're going to have a healthy, optimal blood pressure through your life. Okay. I think I already talked about all this. So, cause number 4, lack of light. This is one that a lot of people miss, even in the health and wellness space. So let there be light. Sunlight reduces blood pressure. This is very, very well known. And we live in a very indoor world. 97, 99% of your time, if you're listening to this and you're a modern, American or Westerner, you're probably spending most of your time or that much time indoors. And you need frequencies of light from the sun in order to optimize your blood pressure, particularly red and infrared light. It's well known that photobiomodulation in the red and infrared range can improve blood pressure. We've seen this over and over again. It's not being widely used. Why? Because it's very hard, frankly, to make money off of this. It's much easier to make money off of drug therapy for high blood pressure. Sauna is well associated, well known to reduce blood pressure. And this is more used in the Scandinavian countries, Russia, places where they have a history and a tradition of sauna than in the United States. So sauna, most people don't realize sauna is fundamentally about light. When you have an infrared sauna, that's infrared light. If you have a traditional, say, Finnish sauna that's got sauna rocks and you use a lowly to spread the water over it, you're still absorbing heat and you're still using the electromagnetic force in order to heat that water to create the heat transfer to your body in order to expel sweat, increase your heart rate, increase blood flow to the skin, detoxify the body, and improve overall cellular bioenergetics. Okay. Cause number 5, methylation problems. So a lot of people don't understand what methylation is. It's the transfer of methyl groups. You don't have to be a biochemist to understand the like 50,000 foot view of this. There won't be a test later. And this is vital to neurotransmitter production. Why is this so important? When you get derangements in the methylation cycle, you will see a strong link with high blood pressure. It's not to say that everyone with methylation problems has high blood pressure, and it's not to say that everyone with high blood pressure has methylation problems, but the two keep really close company together, and you'll often see improvements in the methylation cycle as measured by a lot of different labs improve or correspond with improvements in how you're feeling, how you're sleeping, how you're looking, how you're doing, and what your blood pressure is. I've seen that over and over and over again. Okay. So B vitamins drive methylation. Now, I want to mention that the B vitamins drive methylation, but they also need minerals. So trying to fix methylation without looking at both sides of this equation is not going to work. It would be like trying to fix, I don't know, a car without looking at not only the engine, but the transmission. These things work together to drive the car forward. And when you look overall at human health in general, you do better with more B vitamins on board. This does not mean that you all need to go out and take a high dose B supplement. You might need a low dose B supplement. You might need a high dose for a period of time. But fundamentally, people need to start by optimizing their diet and eating a diet rich in B vitamins. Many of you cannot tolerate certain foods that are rich in B vitamins. You may have nut or seed allergies. You may have intolerances to grains. You may have weird allergies to fish, meat, shellfish. You may not even be able to tolerate green vegetables. Okay. I get it. But somehow you've got to find a diet and a lifestyle where you can get an abundance of B vitamins because the more of these you eat overall, the healthier you're going to be. The literature, I think, is very, very clear on this topic. I want to be clear. This is a U-shaped curve. I don't think that there's necessarily a like value, and there may even be harm done with higher doses of B vitamins over long periods of time. This is why I like to look at testing. I like to do labs. I like to monitor this in my medical practice. And even when I don't, I'm looking, okay, are you at least getting most of these from food? I strongly, strongly believe in leading with food. Why are we facing an epidemic of B vitamin deficiency and therefore methylation problems? So, number one, B vitamins are removed from food with food processing. Brown white turned into white rice, whole wheat turned into white flour, overcooking our greens and freezing them and expose or what's the word I'm looking for? Freezing them for long periods of time, storing them for long periods of time, the B vitamins will break down. Any exposure to air, light, and water will tend to destroy B vitamin content. Now, it's not 100%, but you can take, say, green leafy vegetables with 100% folate content out of the field and deplete them to 30% of some of their vitamins like folate by freezing them and then overcooking them. So it's a huge decrease in the amount of nutrition that you're taking in. And all in all, I generally speaking see people doing much, much better on at least low doses of B vitamins for this reason. Okay. Now I want to take you through some cases that I've seen in the last year where we help people with their blood pressure. So this is theory to practice. We're going to talk about the 5 things and causes that I just went through and how they played out in actual real world cases where we saw people have dramatic improvements in their blood pressure and in some cases come off completely of their blood pressure medications. Okay. So Patricia was a 56-year-old mother. She had years of high blood pressure. She was on multiple meds, has multiple children, runs her own business, very, very stressed out. She wondered why she had a high blood pressure and she wanted to know how to fix it. And that's why she sought out our care in the last year. So we got some lab testing in the medical practice. She started some supplements based on some mineral balances and methylation defects. She started to get outside more. She focused on relaxation and stress reduction. And when she really, really took that seriously, she normalized her blood pressure in under 6 months. She came off all of her meds and had some significant improvements in other numbers, notably HRV. She still struggles with stress management, which we still help her with. But I want you to understand that, and that's another thing I do want you to understand, is that you're not really going to fix your blood pressure. You're going to manage it. You're going to manage it up when it's low and you're going to manage it down when it's too high. And that's a really important thing that we're going to talk a little bit more about later. But Patricia, with diligence and attention to detail and following through on what we recommended to her, was able to get a really wonderful result that she was very happy with. Okay, Aaron, 51-year-old father, C-suite executive, lots of stress, not a lot of time. We see a lot of men and women in this position. They're very successful in their career. It's left them with not a lot of health left in the tank. They know they need to get on top of these problems. They need someone to help them do it. And that's one of the things that we excel in. He was overweight. He was struggling to lose weight, and his blood pressure was like 160 over 100 pretty consistently. We found that he had high blood iron levels. Now, he could have actually done that through his regular doctor if he hadn't flown to see us in the medical practice. More on that later. And then we actually found that he had low potassium and magnesium loads in his diet, which was no surprise to me. He ended up going out and donating some blood. He increased his potassium and sodium intake. Sorry, potassium and magnesium intake is what I meant to say. He saunaed, he exercised, he worked on some breath work, and he got a 20-point improvement in his blood pressure in about 6 weeks. He is still working on his weight loss, and that's a much longer process for anyone who's got a significant amount of weight to lose. Denise, retired 65 years old, told she had high blood pressure by her doctor, placed on multiple medications. She was struggling with fatigue and weight gain. These are common side effects of some of these drugs, by the way. And she was worried that she was going in the wrong direction. She wanted a more personalized, individualized approach. And so she jumped into a program with us. She monitored her blood pressure 4 times daily for a week. Turns out she had completely normal blood pressures. In fact, they were borderline low. She gradually stopped her medications, continuing to monitor and make sure that the blood pressure didn't bounce up, because that's a danger if you stop them too suddenly. She had 0 increase in her blood pressure. She felt great. She was more energetic. And in 3 to 4 months, she dropped 12 pounds and 2 dress sizes. So that's just a snapshot of some of the results we get people on a regular basis. Now I want to introduce you to a very important concept, which is blood pressure optimization, which is also about how we can help you. So I want you to think about blood pressure, not in terms of, I have a high blood pressure, I want to make it lower, but rather, what does it mean to have an optimal blood pressure? Jim, if you don't know him, he's the top strength and conditioning coach in my practice. We work together on all these programs. He coaches people alongside me and independently of me. He's incredible. You should go listen to his most recent podcast with Eric Coram. Jim can link to that in the comments. You don't actually want to necessarily have a low blood pressure. You want to have a blood pressure that can help you get done what you need to get done. He likes to ask people, if you high blood, or how does he put this? He likes to say to people, like, if someone was chasing you with a machete or you were running away from a bear, would you want to have a low blood pressure? The answer is no. You actually want to have a high blood pressure. Why? Because if you're going to get away from the bear or the madman with the machete, you need to have a high blood pressure in order to be able to run as fast as possible to get away from them. So high blood pressure is not de facto bad. In fact, anytime you go out and you exercise, whether you're running on a treadmill or sprinting on a track or lifting a heavy weight or just pushing a sled or picking up a child and putting them on your hip, your blood pressure goes up and your heart rate goes up. If you look at anyone's prescriptions and recommendations for people to normalize their blood pressure and live a long time, they're going to include physical exercise that involves an increase in heart rate and blood pressure. So blood pressure itself being high is not bad. It's when the blood pressure is constantly high. And so, James 681 in the comments says metabolic flexibility. That's exactly the concept that we want. We want flexibility in what we can do. You want to be able to mount an extremely high blood pressure if you have to get away from a bear or meet some kind of threat or run away from some kind of threat. And you want to be able to drop your blood pressure when you're resting and relaxing and sleeping at night, because that's the opposite side of the spectrum and you need both. So optimal health and optimal blood pressure means being able to go back and forth between high and low blood pressure without having a stroke or passing out. Because that's basically what happens. That's the bad things that happen when you're at a high blood pressure or a low blood pressure. You have a stroke, you have a heart attack, you injure your kidneys at the high end. You can have the same thing happen if your blood pressure gets too low. And this is about restoring health and well-being and not treating disease. This is about helping you to become the strongest version of yourself. And that's a really important distinction from, just saying, oh, you got a high blood pressure, you need this, this, and this as far as medications in order to normalize it, right? So we have an opportunity for you to work with us today. It's called our Fundamentals of Wellness Plus Coaching course and program. So this is a wellness coaching program, which includes a 10-module course, including exercise videos from Jim, and 12 months of coaching, weekly coaching with Jim and myself. Jim does 2 of these a month, and then Jim and I together do 2 of them a month. So you get weekly coaching. This course we designed because we found that the vast, like 99% of you are not doing all the fundamental things you need to do in order to be healthy, optimal, and well. Things that don't just reduce your risk or improve things or metrics like blood pressure, but that also have been found to be protective of things like cancers and diabetes and metabolic syndrome and cardiovascular disease and all these other big problems that we see out there in the world. And these are, again, very well established associations. Problems like things like artificial light at night, which is, for example, a known carcinogen. I think it's like a category two. We actually coach people in how to actually mitigate these stresses so that they can be healthy and well. You're also going to get access to bonus webinars, blood pressure secrets, labs and imaging for blood pressure and heart disease, and then diet and exercise secrets for better blood pressure. These are going to be dedicated webinars where we're going to go over in detail all the ins and outs that we see in coaching people, how to optimize their nutrition, optimize their daily lifestyle choices to fix these problems and have the best metabolic flexibility possible. We're also going to include this webinar on labs and imaging where I'll talk about what labs I order in my practice and what kind of imaging I order in my practice. You can take and do with that information what you will, take it to your regular doctor, become a patient at my practice, whichever you prefer. And then that way you can get better care and understand also what you're doing and the kind of care that you're getting. You'll also get access to our new course, which we're currently producing. Wellness Secrets. Wellness Secrets is access to weekly webinars on critically important topics, things like gut health, psychological topics or issues like depression, anxiety, ADHD. We get lots of questions on those. We'll also give you exclusive access to guides, protocols, and specific products that I don't necessarily put out there for the general public. It will also include our upcoming course, Strength and Conditioning Secrets, which is mostly done and also largely included in Fundamentals of Wellness, which includes mini circuits from gym and exercises for relaxation, strength, fitness, body composition, and more. Okay, we get this question over and over again, so I want to spell it out very, very, very clearly. There's a difference here between coaching people and practicing medicine. And the reason that's so important is that, as you probably realize, there's a lot of laws and regulations around practicing medicine, but coaching is a lot more straightforward and simple. Okay. So what is coaching? Coaching includes talking about the principles of diet, lifestyle, exercise, your daily routine, and also talking about things that are over the counter like nutritional supplements, right? Should everyone take a vitamin D? Should everyone take vitamin A or B vitamins, and what dose and how long and how often and whatever, right? But fundamentally, the difference between coaching and medical care is that coaching is about teaching and not ordering. If you want me to be your doctor, all of a sudden I'm placing orders. I'm ordering labs, I'm ordering prescriptions, I'm ordering detailed supplement recommendations or protocols based upon the labs that we get back, as well as, metrics like blood pressure, heart rate variability, other metrics we track. And then I may or may not order medical imaging. Why is this such an important distinction? Okay. So coaching, you get more frequent calls. It's more affordable because there's not the overhead of a medical practice. It's available anywhere and everywhere. And guess what? 100% of you need a coach. This is so true that I started to include group coaching in my medical programs that was not optional. If you are a patient at the practice, you will get group coaching, whether you use it or not. And honestly, I think people who don't go for group coaching with Jim and I, they're really missing out. A lot of them don't understand how not getting group coaching is going to lead to bad long-term results, almost no matter how much time, money, and effort they put into their wellness. More on that later. I'm happy to expand on that if people have questions about it after the webinar is over. Okay, medical care. You get less frequent contact. It's less affordable. You must live in either New York or Florida, or you must travel to see us, which is hundreds or thousands of dollars. If that's not an issue for you, we'd love to see you as a patient, but it's also limited in availability. And the truth is, we can coach you in how to get your medical care, because any good coach is going to do this because it's essential, right? Like if you go to any personal trainer, strength and conditioning specialist, whatever, and you say, hey, I have these terrible headaches, right? What should I do? They may be able to tell you, okay, you should go see a chiropractor. You should go see a doctor. You should go get that image or x-rayed or whatever. Jim and I have both had situations where in daily life for coaching people, we've said, you know what, you need to really get that looked at. And then they go and they get that looked at, and that's part of their medical care. But we're not practicing medicine through a coaching program. Okay. Why do I think you should all start with a course and a coaching program? Here's the deal. 99% of your problems are in what you're eating and how you're living. I do not need a medical degree or license to tell you the ins and outs of a healthy diet and lifestyle. I don't need a medical degree or license to say, you're 6'3", drinking 2 liters of water a day is just not enough for you. You need to increase that amount. I don't need my license or my degree to say, wow, you're drinking really badly polluted municipal water. Look at all the contaminants that we found in your municipal water, or you're not using the right filter to remove those contaminants. It's time for you to change your water source. That's not practicing medicine. Why? Because I'm not diagnosing and I'm not treating a disease. There's a place for lab testing, imaging, prescriptions, and more. But the simple reality is the people who get the best results, no matter how they engage me as a doctor, as a coach, or they just follow me on social media, the people who get the best results are the people who do the fundamentals. And most people are not doing the fundamentals. And even when they're doing them wrong. I cannot tell you how many people have come into coaching programs with us and they say, I took this course and I took that course and I heard about this on that podcast and I'm taking this and I'm taking that and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I've tried everything. I'm sure what I need is labs and what I need is prescriptions and what I need is imaging. And the secret is in that. And invariably, Jim and I look at those cases and we find that people are executing the fundamentals wrong, no matter how much they know. And that this difference in execution is everything. I tell people right up front, the top 2 reasons for failure in my experience as a doctor are failure to engage and failure to execute. Failure to engage means not engaging with your team. Now, whether you're trying to put on 20 pounds of lean muscle mass or drop 15 pounds of fat and your team is a personal trainer or a nutritionist or a health coach or whatever, or you've got a serious chronic disease and you've got a medical team, right? You've got to engage. You've got to go see them. You've got to talk to them. You've got to work with them and you've got to give them an opportunity to help you understand your problem so that you can fix it. Because ultimately, we can't do your push-ups for you. We can't prep your meals for you. You've got to do the heavy lifting if you want to get great results. So that's that's engaging. And failure to engage means not engaging those people. I see it happening over and over again. It's a really big problem. And it's a big part of why we have so many frequent contact points in the coaching program, right? Once a week is a lot. And frankly, it used to cost a lot more to work with us that often than it does now, because we've been fortunate to have more and more people sign up. So we've been able to provide more and make these more affordable programs. Second problem, failure to execute. So people who don't execute do not get results. We see it over and over and over again. And I hate to break it to you, but listen, the podcasts, the blog articles, the tweets, the whatever, people are not getting paid in this health and wellness info space to hold you accountable. They're being paid to sell you stuff. And I make no bones and am totally transparent about the fact that I'm right here, right now, selling you coaching. Because the simple fact of the matter is you need it. I can't tell you, like I said before, how many people come in and they've listened to the podcasts, they've read the articles, they've tried the biohacks, they have like boxes of supplements, they have suitcases full of, fancy toys and tricks and gimmicks and, tools that they spend a lot of money on that they don't even know how to use or integrate into a coherent plan, right? They don't get results. They come to work with us. We help them put it together and they get results. And that's the difference between thinking that you know what you need to know and actually doing it. So like I was saying, most people are not doing the fundamentals, and expecting to do something like have an optimal blood pressure through the course of your life without doing the fundamentals is like expecting to win a gold medal at the Olympics without doing any basic physical training. There's a reason why D1 athletic schools and programs have dedicated strength and conditioning professionals. It's because they understand that if you're going to go out and you're going to win and you're going to perform at the highest level and outcompete everybody in the whole world, or the country or the league or whatever, you've absolutely got to have athletes who are in top physical condition. And once they're in that condition, then you can start to do fancy stuff like focus on technique, take their training in their specific position, sport, whatever, to a higher level. But if they don't have that base foundation of fitness and they don't have those fundamental habits and choices in place, they're going to fail and they're going to lose. Sadly, I mean, many of you remember this, right? When the internet came out, it was amazing. All of a sudden, you could find information on so much stuff, and it was right at your fingertips, and it cost nothing. Very few people had paywalls. All the information was free. Well, now you have actually a serious problem. There is so much information out there that the vast majority of you are terribly confused about what actually matters and what you need to do. We see this over and over again because we have a highly educated, highly motivated group of people who follow us on social media, and they already listen to podcasts and read articles and so on and so forth, right? But you've been so inundated with information that the information that actually matters to you is hard to find. And I have to tell you, I struggle with this too. And this is my full-time 100% job, and I'm totally obsessed with it. I've been doing it for 20 years. Okay. There's so much information out there that even I still find stuff buried out there in articles, blog posts, and books that totally change my thinking sometimes overnight. And I talked to Joe Mercola about this 3 or 4 weekends ago when I went to visit him. He recently did an about face on his high fat versus high carb dietary approach. And I got to tell you guys, if you're out here trying to figure it out on your own and you're only able to spend 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 hours a week trying to figure out how to be optimally healthy or fix whatever it is you want to fix, your blood pressure, your weight, your ability to lift heavy weights, your mood, whatever it is, right? Let us help you, because we really have spent a lot of time figuring this out for you. And we really badly want to save you the trouble and the pain and the misery and the confusion that a lot of you are dealing with. At the end of the day, 100% of people need coaching to achieve great things. I got to tell you, if you want to live a long and healthy life in our tipsy-topsy, crazy, wacky, wild modern world, you better believe you need coaching to do it, because there's too much information and there's too many people trying to take advantage of you. And there's too much just bad advice floating around out there for people to do it on your own. I respect the impulse to do it yourself wellness. I really do believe that everyone should strive to be their own doctor. But I got to tell you, I think it's a little bit like trying to renovate your own house. If you're really good at that, do it. But if you're not, maybe leave it to the experts. Now, it's kind of a loaded question because we all like to make fun of the experts. I like to make fun of the experts. In fact, one of my favorite quotes is, an expert is someone who has made all of the mistakes within a very narrow field. Niels Bohr, one of the founders of quantum physics, said that. And I think it's very funny. I've already made a lot of mistakes, so you don't have to. Okay. So why you should start with a course plus coaching. We're going to walk you through the fundamentals. We're going to hold you accountable. We're going to help you understand what wellness truly means. We're going to cut through the noise and confusion of the wellness world. We're going to help you make the most of your time and money. I got to be honest with you, when Jim and I were coming up with this opportunity for you to work with us, I thought, this is crazy. This is not expensive enough. We should make it more expensive. So I think you'd be crazy to pass this up, respectfully. All right. I want to let you know that if you want more time and access to us, or if you're a man and you want to be coached only with other men, which we respect, then we have another opportunity for you. It's called Optimal Male Vitality. You'll get access to the same material. You'll also get access to a community of like-minded men who are committed to becoming as resilient and strong as possible. A lot of men today understand that men and normal, healthy masculinity are under siege. If you're one of those men and you're craving a community of such men, you can book a call with Eric to discuss whether or not this is the right opportunity for you. You will get twice weekly men-only group coaching, Mondays with Jim, Thursdays with Jim and myself. You'll get one-on-one coaching with Jim throughout the week. And then you can book a call with Eric if you want to find out more about that. Okay. If you are bound and determined to become a patient, if you're really sure that you don't need this coaching thing and you absolutely want labs, you can go to stillmanmd.com. You can apply for a consultation. The link should be in the description below this as well. You'll then have the opportunity to book a call with Molly, and she'll walk you through our executive physical and lab review program, as well as annual medical programs with quarterly labs. However, you must live in Florida or New York, or you have to travel to see us in Florida. Okay. Make sure you're on our email list. Why? StillmanWellness.com. If you scroll to the bottom, you can opt in. If you opt into any of the things that we offer, patient application, the Optimal Male Vitality program, whatever, you'll get our emails. One of the perks for being on the email list is you get free access to live weekly webinars and their replays. This is a tremendous value because all these webinars go into our paid coaching programs and courses behind the paywall later on. So you only get access to them free if you're on the list. You'll also get updates on what we're doing, really important webinars, speaking appearances, podcasts that Jim or I have done. Will be going out through that email. You'll also get exclusive offers on our programs, retreats, and more that you may not get or won't get other places. I want you to know we never spam, we never sell your data, and we will only send you emails 3 times a week. We're not here to bombard you with emails and exhaust you. We are here to serve you and take care of you and help you understand how to be healthy and well. Okay. This offer is good until the end of the month. The normal pricing for this is going to be $199 monthly after that. And I want you to know that we are only going to we make offers like this periodically because we want to have more people in our programs. However, as more people sign up, we have to do more coaching in order and more the group coaching sessions in order to maintain the same quality and give you all the time and attention that you all need and deserve. So the more people who sign up, the higher the price gets. Now is the time to jump in and get into it early while we have it on sale. Jim, I believe the cost right now is $99 monthly, and you get the first month half off if you book before the end of the month. That is a great deal. Cornelia asks, I'm 74. Am I too old to benefit from this coaching program? The only reason you would not necessarily benefit from this coaching program is if you cannot sign on to the group coaching calls or access the online course. So if you feel comfortable with the technology, and we will do our best to accommodate you and help you access it, we can help you. Okay. We have a lot of people in that age range actually who we help. So thank you all for watching. I'm looking forward to taking your questions. Sign up today. Links are below in the description. And with that, I will take questions. If you got questions about any topic, anything I talked about, our programs, or just questions about blood pressure in general, ask them in the comments and I will let you know. And if there's no questions, oh, that's right. I got this question earlier and I forgot to answer it. So Kimberly Smith asks, what about menopausal women? Is there anything additional for that group? So I think that I take care of a ton of menopausal women. A lot of menopausal women are in our coaching programs. We don't have a program specific for you, but I absolutely guarantee you will get a lot out of this course that will help you understand how to be healthy and well as a menopausal woman. Eileen Seitz, my cardiologist had me take a calcium score test. This is a great question. We are going to be going over how to think about the coronary artery calcium scan that I think you're referring to in one of these webinars, because I think a lot of people don't understand how to think about their cardiac risk stratification and testing and imaging. And one thing I got to tell you about these tests, right, is that there's almost no point in getting a test when you've got a unhealthy lifestyle or an unhealthy diet. If you fix that diet and you fix that lifestyle, you're going to see test results change, right? So if somebody comes to me and they say, I don't sleep well, I'm eating a lot of processed food, I don't go outside ever, I get lots of artificial light at night and I'm staying up late. Well, I know that a lot of their labs are going to be deranged because of that. So is it a good idea for me to spend or tell them to spend their money or spend their insurance company's money or whatever on lab testing? It's a better approach to get your diet and your lifestyle dialed in, and then you spend your money on your lab testing, or as the case may be, you get your insurance company to cover your lab testing. So, Jeff and Linda Hannawalt, I'm glad this is helpful to you. We appreciate you watching. Mindy Kelsch, what are some high potassium foods? That's a great question. So my favorite high potassium foods are potatoes, sweet potatoes, bananas, and believe it or not, goat milk. Goat milk is loaded with potassium. Now, I got to tell you that a lot of people fall for the very popular strategy of, okay, I'm going to find a bunch of high potassium, high magnesium foods. I'm going to eat more of them. And then I'm going to expect my blood pressure to drop. I got to tell you, it's an incomplete solution. Can it help? Yes. Is it important to get high potassium foods? Of course it is. I see lots of low potassium diets. Those people feel bad. They don't age gracefully. putting potassium back into their diet is revolutionary for many of them. And so, yeah, that's my answer for high potassium foods. There's a lot of other ones, by the way, and there's other caveats because there's things that will cause you to waste potassium that I coach people on, but it's another story. Okay. Is 140/80 a high blood pressure? The answer is sort of, Nancy. So, one of the things you'll notice about those numbers is that it's what we call a wide pulse pressure. So you have a high systolic at 140. That's still in the prehypertensive. It's right on the border of prehypertensive to hypertensive range, depending on who you ask, to be honest. And then the 80, that's diastolic, is low. As we age, your blood pressure tends to get wider and wider and wider. So it's not uncommon for us to see an elderly person, 80, 85, 90, 100, with a blood pressure of like 140/70 or even 60. What I want you guys to understand is that a lot of people wind up medicated for their blood pressure, and it causes more falls. And this is part of why a lot of people, I'm wary of them getting stuck in the thinking of, okay, I took a pill for my blood pressure, the problem is managed. Having a medicated normal blood pressure is not necessarily good. And likewise, I've seen many older people who are at extreme risk of falls that can be very, very severe for them at their elderly age if they have fragile bones. Those people will then get over medicated. They'll fall, they'll break a hip. And so in trying to prevent their high blood pressure from hurting them will actually have created a whole new problem. And the other thing I want you all to know is that these problems that we see people dealing with, dementia, osteoporosis, heart disease, stroke, all the stuff we put in the fundamentals of wellness is all the evidence-based information that really helps people to optimize their health and minimize their risk of these problems. So I know that was a long rambling answer, but 140/80 is sort of a high blood pressure. But the real question you want to ask is, where should my blood pressure be, and how can I have a healthy normal blood pressure with as narrow a blood pressure or a pulse pressure difference as possible? Okay. Can high blood pressure be considered genetic? Very, very rarely. There are some genetic predispositions, but 99.9% of high blood pressure is related to diet and lifestyle. So Susie asks, after you've coached us on our wellness and we are great, is there a follow-up coaching process? And what is the average time people stay in your coaching program? So the Fundamentals of Wellness is set up as an annual program. So it's monthly payments for 12 months. After that time, depending on what you need, we're happy to continue helping you. I think one of the most important things for people to know is that, and Jim and I go through this ourselves. Jim and I both have coaches who coach us. Like I have mentors in medicine who I'll call and ask them about difficult cases. Jim's got, mentors like Bill Hartman who he can call and ask if he's got a unique issue or a unique problem. And we'll actually do that, by the way, for people in these programs. We had a guy recently who he'd had a lung removed because of a rare cancer. And Jim actually called up his mentor and said, hey, how do I need to modify what I'm doing with this guy in order to help him optimally and not hurt him? And he got a great answer. So anyway, the average time people stay in the coaching program honestly depends on them. We see lots and lots of variability in this, but I got to tell you, the people who don't engage tend to quit. I hate to say it, but when they do that, they often come back to us 6 months, a year, 2 years later and say, I really wanted to work with you then. I didn't make the time. It was a big mistake and I wish I had. The best investment you can make is your health. And I think the biggest mistake I see my patients and clients making in the coaching practice is that they kick the can of their wellness down the road in order to chase something that doesn't ultimately matter to them. They're chasing the promotion, they're chasing the next deal, they're chasing the next raise, they're just chasing things. And these things don't fundamentally make you happy or fulfill you. You need to be optimally healthy. You need to be the best, healthiest version of yourself in order to be there for your family, in order to be there for your friends, for your community, in order to live the life you want to live and achieve the things you want to achieve. And that's what coaching in these wellness programs and in the fundamentals of wellness is really all about. So I can't give you an average time. We have people who've been working with us for years, and we have people who have been, who work with us for a matter of months and say, this isn't for me. And we wish those people well. We were frankly very skeptical about their long-term results with other people, but that's that. All right. Jim asks, good to see you, Jim. Doctor, I've read benefits of boron in bone health in other areas. Do you find this to be true? The answer is yes, but there's a big caveat there. So boron is not well studied. there's a handful of reports out there about boron being used to improve certain hormone levels that have to do with bone health. And that makes it a very attractive supplement to recommend for this. However, it's such a small amount of data that I'm wary of recommending it strongly. The other big mistake that people will make is they'll think, well, I'm taking this for my pancreas and this for my kidneys and this for my brain and this for my blood pressure and this for my this and this and that and the other thing. And they're like, okay, I got my bases covered because I'm taking all this stuff. No, you don't. If you don't have the fundamental lifestyle habits, if you don't have a fundamentally healthy diet, if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, if you don't have the fundamental things we help people to implement and remain consistent on, and if you don't have someone to hold you accountable and say, hey, did you do all that stuff you said you were going to do? If you don't have that, the boron's not going to help you. And if it does, it's not going to help you a lot. A lot of people make the mistake. I call it worrying about, I call it rearranging the furniture while the house is on fire. Their house is burning down. They've got diabetes. They're obese. They've got high blood pressure. They're headed for that heart attack, the stroke, the dementia, the cancer, whatever it is. They're headed for that. And they're like, what about taking this? What about taking that? If you don't have a holistic, comprehensive approach to being healthy, it's not going to work. And this is why people will go to the gym. They'll sign up for gym membership. They'll pay a trainer. They'll pay a coach to hold them accountable. That's a big part of what Jim and I do. Okay. Angela Clark asks, what is the danger of high magnesium? That is a great question. There is not really a danger of high magnesium. You can't really overdose on magnesium unless a doctor is giving it to you as an IV. And that's really only done in the treatment of preeclampsia in people who are giving birth. You can push serum magnesium levels higher and higher and higher. And frankly, there's a huge benefit to that. If you look at serum magnesium levels, the lower your serum magnesium in general, the higher your risk of death, which is a really interesting association. So I will almost always put someone on a higher magnesium diet than they're already on. And I will often recommend in my medical practice magnesium supplementation. However, you will find that magnesium can have effects on how people feel and their mood. It has a tendency to kind of ramp people down and calm them down. And if you're trying to do something that requires you to be revved up, it may not actually be a performance enhancer for you. Jim and I talk to people about this in our coaching programs all the time, because we talk to them like, what's your goal? If I gave, say, a power lifter a high dose of magnesium right before a powerlifting meet, it actually wouldn't surprise me if they lifted less. Not because magnesium isn't essential for energy generation, it is, but because it can have this sedating, calming effect. And you actually need to be totally revved up and as far into a sympathetic state of overdrive as possible in order to lift a heavy weight. Now, most of you are not trying to win a powerlifting competition, so this doesn't necessarily apply to you. However, I will also tell you that the vast majority of people I take care of as patients or who I coach as clients, they're on or they've been on magnesium supplements. It's one of the lowest hanging pieces of fruit on the wellness tree because you've been out there, you've heard the podcast, magnesium treats like everything in the health and wellness literature. It's good for everything. At least that's generally true. But it isn't the solution. And often a low magnesium level is the consequence of bad choices that we have to find. And you'll find lots of people who are out there, they're taking 2-3 grams of magnesium from different forms a day, and it hasn't fixed their problems. So it can help. There's not danger really in high magnesium, like I said, unless someone's infusing it into you. Hopefully they're monitoring you properly, right? And it can have these small effects on performance that are important to note in certain situations. All right. Ilana asks, are beets good for high blood pressure? Yes, generally speaking. Can you talk about the link between high blood pressure and metabolic syndrome? That's a great question. So you'll see that a lot of, high blood pressure and metabolic syndrome, metabolic syndrome, I don't have the academic, definition off the top of my head, but basically when I hear metabolic syndrome, I think broken metabolism, poor glucose tolerance, high insulin levels and insulin resistance, lots of extra weight on the body, call it obesity, call it being overweight, whatever you want to call it. that keeps very high company with high blood pressure, very close company with high blood pressure. So what's the link here? The same diet and lifestyle habits that tend to drive blood pressure up also wreck and ruin metabolism and create metabolic syndrome. And that's why it's often the first sign that someone's on the track of their first heart attack, their first stroke, their first cancer, their first big medical problem. Angela White, what about kidney disease and you're told not to eat potassium? This is a great point. If you have a low glomerular filtration rate, GFR, you have chronic kidney disease, you may need to limit your potassium intake because potassium can build up to high levels in the blood of those who do not process it well. This is a very small proportion of people. So I didn't explain it or talk about it earlier. And if you've got that problem, you really need to work closely with a physician who understands these minerals in order to get optimal levels in. Because it's not that you want to eat no potassium, because you need potassium, right? But you need it to be balanced. And because your kidneys can't excrete it normally, you need to be very careful with your intake so that you don't create what we call hyperkalemia, which is bad enough that we actually hospitalize people for it pretty regularly. Brooke Eichelberger, what does the coaching process look like offline aside from the weekly meetings? Brooke, that's a great question. You get access to all the recordings of the weekly meetings. The coaching process in Optimal Vitality is different from that in the Fundamentals of Wellness. And you'll also get access to our course where you've got lots of different modules. And what will generally happen in the coaching is we'll say, hey, I think you should do this, this, and this. I recommend you watch this video again or do that, or check out that video. Jim will often say, hey, go in, look at this mini circuit, do that mini circuit. That's going to be perfect for you based on what your goals are and what you're currently dealing with. And so that's how we help people offline. All right. Brian Lynch, opinion on beta blockers and insulin resistance. I really hate beta blockers as a drug class. I really do. But they have a place because the reality is that a lot of people are stuck in this chronic sympathetic activation state, and you need to shut it off sometimes. And if they don't want to engage with diet and lifestyle changes and stress reduction, pharmacological agents are really the only way to do it. So I don't just take people off beta blockers willy-nilly, but I do want them to engage with all the fundamentals of wellness, literally, so that they can get out of that sympathetic overdrive and then they can wean their beta blockers. Because again, I'll say it 1,000 times. The greatest medicine of all is teaching people how not to need it. That should be the goal of every doctor, every physician. I think that should be chiseled in stone above the doors of every medical school in the world. Insulin resistance and beta blockers. So you'll see that people who are on beta blockers can get worse metabolic syndrome and metabolic markers. And here's why, one of the reasons at least why. When you give people beta blockers, the number one thing they'll complain of is fatigue because you're blocking their body's ability to get revved up and have energy. Now, you may be saving them from a high blood pressure, and that may be good, but you're also setting them up to be a couch potato, and that's not good. And that's why there's no substitute for optimizing your health. It's not enough to just say, okay, I'm going to fill my prescriptions and do what my doctor told me this month. That's a recipe for long-term misery and disappointment. So what I'll do is I'll help people coach them into these fundamental habits. We'll help them understand how to maintain and restore metabolic flexibility and flexibility in their blood pressure. And then, they can usually normalize their diet, eat whatever they want within reason, for the record, and come off meds, which obviously we don't do in coaching programs, but you got to work with a doctor to taper medications and all that. Okay. Eileen Gudjonsa-Dottir. I hope I said that wrong. Right. I think I probably butchered it. Forgive me. Taking blood pressure medicine for 30 years now. Are there minerals that these medicines deplete from the body? That's a great question. And the answer is 100% yes. Blood pressure medications. I sometimes, one of the number one classes of blood pressure meds are what we call diuretics. These are medications that make you pee, and making you pee reduces your circulating volume, and that reduces your blood pressure. But I sometimes tell patients that using diuretics to treat a high blood pressure is a little bit like using a 9mm pistol to drain a bathtub. It's not an elegant solution. It's not the best solution. And one of the reasons why is that you drain minerals out of the body with these medicines. So that's one reason why there is a place for measuring these minerals to make sure that the levels are normal and optimal. But I got to tell you, even before you measure these things in a laboratory setting, you've got to understand how much you're taking in. I routinely see people in my practice who are getting 4 or 5 grams of sodium a day, and they're eating 1, 2, 3, maybe grams of potassium a day. That is a terrible, what I would call sodium to potassium inversion. The ratio is inverted. You want to get way more potassium than sodium in the vast majority of people. Now, I got to add the caveat, right? Somebody asked earlier, what about in renal failure or kidney failure? Well, you can't just push potassium into those people because you can hurt them. You can even kill them. So, yeah, you want to take a look at minerals, and you want to take a look at why the blood pressure is high. Because if you can fix the diet and the lifestyle problems underlying it, then you may be able to stop the medication, and that's the first step in repleting those minerals. Okay. Michael Honer asks if blood pressure is more cultural than genetic. Or Michelle, excuse me, 100%. Okay. Maria Love, how reliable are at-home blood pressure monitors? They are variously reliable. So one of the things I'll do if someone's home blood pressure monitor is up and down here and there, what I will do is I'll say, look, you've got to either buy a second one or you've got to go to your doctor if a doctor is accessible for you. And let's be real. One of the reasons why I started coaching people is that there were way too many people who wanted to be patients at my practice, and I couldn't possibly take care of all of them. And the truth is, what you mostly need from me is education and information, not prescriptions and orders. And so we started these coaching programs to help more people. And a big part of why there's so much demand and so much interest is that many of you don't feel like you have a doctor available who can really help you. They're not going to spend enough time with you. They have been indoctrinated into bad modes of thinking regarding health and disease. They're going to try and put you on a bunch of drugs that you may not want to take or may have side effects that you're not prepared to deal with. Regardless of the reason, we help coach people through how to, okay, look, you got a high blood pressure. You've absolutely got to have some kind of doctor. Here's the one I would look for. Here's how I would find them. Here's how I would engage them. And here's how I would pay for it. We actually help people understand that, because part of our goal, by the way, in the coaching programs, and maybe I should mention this more, is to actually save you money on your healthcare. Because a lot of you are just throwing money out the window, flushing it down the toilet with bad solutions, bad ideas. And some of you are just being gouged by a medical system that's being run by the most corrupt, crooked, evil, wicked people in the world. And I know that system painfully well. And I can actually help you understand how to get what you need for less in that system without also having to deal with a lot of headaches and misery and woe that a lot of you have come to take for as just a part of daily living in our modern world. So back to your question, Maria, home blood pressure monitors, in my experience, are quite reliable. And there's great consistency between the measurements I get in patients when I see them in person and that I see in their home monitors. And if you have a problem with it, it's easy to troubleshoot. Are beets as helpful for blood pressure as touted? I don't know. That's kind of a loaded question, right? Who are you asking? Beets are one of my favorite foods. I made borscht yesterday because of that. And it's an amazing, amazing, amazing functional food. It has a lot of medicinal benefit. All right. Lizanne Nicole, I've had my gallbladder removed. Is it still possible to absorb the nutrients I need to lower my blood pressure? Of course, it is. Sometimes people need to make slight dietary modifications. Sometimes they need some supplements to optimize their health and nutrition. That is something that we cover in coaching programs and some of our educational webinars. Angela Clark asks, not on any supplements, just got blood work done and it was high. I'm going to have to ask you. Oh, I think Angela said, Angela, you asked. Oh, okay. So Angela asked a great question. So Angela's prior question was, what are the dangers of high mag? So magnesium is really funny. The depending on which lab you get it measured at, the normal range is being set not based on optimal health, but based on the normal population. Now you got to understand the normal population doesn't eat enough magnesium. So they're going to have low magnesium levels. And what we'll see is that people who are taking magnesium supplements and eating a high magnesium diet have high normal or even high magnesium levels. But this isn't necessarily a problem. I see levels in my practice routinely up to 2.5, 2.6. I don't remember the units, but they're higher than the upper limit of normal. Now, that's not to say that you don't have a problem. You could be like the one person in the world, because I've truly never seen anyone develop true hypermagnesemia in their serum from taking magnesium supplements. Your body will expel magnesium as a liquid stool once you get to a certain threshold in your diet. And that's why it's basically impossible to OD on magnesium. Okay. Mark asks, can you talk about the effects of NRT, Nicorette, or Zyn and the effects on blood pressure? I actually don't know enough about that to give you a solid answer. I will tell you that any substance that tends to rev people up, in my experience, can give you some blood pressure issues, things like caffeine. But some of that is because they often cause you to dump and lose excessive amounts of things that help you control your blood pressure. Things like, say, magnesium and potassium. And the other caveat to that is that what you'll also see in this is that people will often engage in bad habits when they're hyped up on drugs. So let's say that somebody, and when I say drugs, I'm also talking about caffeine and nicotine. Let's say that you take a lot of nicotine and caffeine late in the day. Well, you're probably going to stay up. And what are you going to do when you stay up? You're probably going to bake in artificial light, watching TV or scrolling through Instagram or social media or whatever. This is ipso facto not good for your blood pressure, right? So these are complex things that we help people understand in the coaching programs and help them manage if they, for example, need stimulants in order to perform at work or at play, or if they need to stay up at night in order to do a job or something like that. Nancy asks, there's so many different types of mag. How do you know what you should take for high blood pressure or constipation? That's a great question, but I need more context because I will recommend different types of magnesium based upon what's going on in someone's clinical case. Okay. Eileen asks if low HDL cholesterol and high HDL levels affect blood pressure. Not directly, but indirectly, yes. Michelle asks, is stress a big factor in high blood pressure if diet is good and you exercise? 100%. Absolutely. I've seen that over and over and over again. Mark Gutierrez asks, are cold plunges good for lowering blood pressure? The answer is maybe, because everyone's different and the effect, therefore, is going to be different. Rob asks, can grapeseed oil regulate blood pressure? That is one of the most studied supplements for this, and it could be helpful. However, I will tell you that I don't think most people need this. I think that they need to fix their diet and lifestyle. What tests measure your minerals? Asks Michelle. I use blood levels and I also use hair tests. Maria asks, can glucose affect blood pressure levels? The answer is sort of. Salt is sometimes bad for blood pressure. Most people, however, are not suffering from what we call sodium sensitive or salt sensitive hypertension or blood pressure, high blood pressure. And now that we've run out of questions, thanks everyone for tuning in. Take care. Have a great day. And I would like to ask you to share this with someone who needs it. Don't forget to get outside, by the way. It's a beautiful day here in Florida. That's where I'm going next.